a sound or you'll wake them in the deepest part of the ancient forest. The flickering candlelight illuminates the faded pages of a story. Hedgehog still sits and tells the stories that people dare not tell before.
The Empress of Cinnabar and Bone.
In the heart of her empire that called itself the Celestial Mandate, beneath a sky the colour of faded jade, lay the Eternal City. Its walls were vast, its canals intricate as a spider's web, and its heart was the Forbidden Palace, a sprawling complex of upturned eaves adorned with silent, stone dragons. The Emperor, the Son of Heaven, was a ghost haunting his own golden halls. He was a man made of parchment and regret, his life force seeking away not from illness, but from a profound, spiritual ennui. The business of ruling was left to the eunuchs and ministers, whose smiles were as sharp as their daggers, and whose loyalty was a currency traded in shadows. The true power, however, resided in the inner court, and at its centre was Empress Huli Jing, though that was not the name she was born with. She was known now as the Empress of Cinnabar and Bone, a title whispered only when the wind rustled through the bamboo groves. She was not old, but ageless, her beauty a perfectly preserved artifact. Her hair was a cascade of polished obsidian, her skin like the finest white jade, and her eyes held the cold, intelligent stillness of a deep, frozen lake. She had not borne the Emperor a son, and the court buzzed with the ambitions of lesser consorts, their schemes as intricate and fragile as glass figurines. They did not understand that they were not playing a game of politics, but a survival against something far more ancient and hungry.
The Empress's power did not come from bloodline or favor, but from alchemy. Deep within the palace, in a chamber that was never recorded on any map, was her laboratory. The air was thick with the smells of mercury, sulfur, and slow-boiling elixirs. Jars lined the shelves, not containing pickled fruits, but things that once lived. A fox with 9 tails, perfectly preserved. A snake with a human face. The still-beating heart of a mountain demon, pulsing with a dull red light. Here, the Empress practiced the forbidden arts, seeking the ultimate prize, the Elixir of Immortality. Her chief alchemist was a man named Lin, a gaunt, hollow-cheeked scholar whose ambition had long since burned away his conscience. He had once sought to harness the Tao, to align himself with the natural flow of the cosmos, but the Empress had shown him a more direct path to power, a path that required not harmony, but subjugation. It required fuel, and the most potent fuel, they had discovered, was not gold or jade, but the essence of magical beings themselves. The Killen's grace is spent, Your Majesty, Lin reported one evening, his voice a dry rustle. He gestured to a massive, ornate horn that lay on a velvet cushion. It was cracked and dull, its innate luminescence extinguished. We have distilled all the benevolence from it. The phoenix feather you acquired last year has also turned to ash. Their power is pure, but it is fleeting. It resists being bound to a mortal will. The Empress ran a long, polished nail along the edge of a bronze cauldron where a thick, scarlet liquid bubbled. The celestial creatures are too aligned with the heavens. Their essence is light and order. What we require is something more primal. Something of the earth, of shadow and resilience. She turned her frozen gaze upon him. The jade rabbit of the moon is a myth. The peng bird is beyond our reach. We must look lower. We must look to the things that have learned to thrive in the dark. Lin's blood ran cold. He knew what she meant. The Huli Jing, the fox spirits. They were not divine. They were creatures of cunning and survival, who cultivated their power over centuries, weaving illusion and seduction. Their essence was one of transformation and enduring will, the perfect, stubborn ingredient for an elixir that could defy the mandate of heaven itself. To hunt a Huli Jing, it is not like capturing a Killen, Lin warned. They are vengeful, deceptive. All the better, the Empress replied, a faint, cruel smile touching her lips. Their vengeance, their cunning, that is the strength we need to steal. Find one. An old one. One with multiple tails. Its core will be potent. Answer, the hunt began. Lin dispatched teams of the Empress's personal guard, the silent ones, men whose tongues had been removed to safeguard secrets, and whose eyes were as expressive as stones. They scoured the empire, from the mist-shrouded peaks of Huangshan to the gnarled, ancient forests of the south. They sought rumors of a beautiful woman who never aged, of a village blessed with inexplicable good fortune that always came with a subtle, hidden cost, of a fox seen with not one, but several flowing tails. Their search led them to a remote, mountainous province, to a village nestled in the lap of a valley so deep the sun only touched it for a few hours a day. The village was called Willowroot, and it was poor, but not desperate. The people were healthy, their crops, while meager, were always sufficient. They spoke, in hushed, reverent tones, of a protector. A spirit who lived in a cave behind the thundering curtain of the valley's Vale waterfall. They left offerings of sweet rice cakes and cups of clear wine on a mossy stone at the waterfall's pool. They called her Lady Su. When the Silent Ones arrived, their black lacquer armor and expressionless faces sown a terror deeper than any bandit raid. They did not speak. They simply pointed at the offerings, then at the waterfall. The village elder, trembling, confirmed the stories. A beautiful lady, sometimes seen walking in the moonlight. She had brought them luck, healed their sick, and in return, asked only for their respect and silence. It was all the confirmation Lin needed. He did not come with soldiers. He came alone, dressed as a traveling scholar. He set up a small camp near the waterfall and waited. For days, he meditated, played his cunning, and painted the scenery. He was a patient fisherman, and he was casting a very specific lure, that of a cultured, harmless, and lonely man. On the seventh night, when the moon was a sliver of polished silver, she appeared. She emerged from the mist of the waterfall as if stepping through a beaded curtain. Her name was Su Ling, and she was, as the stories said, breathtakingly beautiful. But it was a wild, untamed beauty. Her hair was the color of autumn fox fur, with streaks of russet and gold. Her eyes, tilted and intelligent, were the color of amber. She moved with a fluid grace that was not entirely human. She had cultivated her power for 6 centuries, and she bore 3 tails, which she kept hidden under an illusion of a simple, grey cloak. "You play well, scholar," she said, her voice like the sound of the wind through pine needles. "But your song is full of sorrow, and your heart smells of metal and fire." Lin bowed low, hiding the thrill that shot through him. "You are perceptive, my lady. I am but a failed scholar, seeking solace in nature after the cruelties of the world." He was a master of deception. Over the following weeks, he wove a tapestry of lies as intricate as any fox spirit's illusion. He spoke of a corrupt magistrate who had ruined his family, of a lost love, of a yearning for a simple, honest life away from the poisons of court. He was careful, so careful, to never ask about her nature directly. He spoke of philosophy, of poetry, of the beauty of the natural world. He appealed to the part of her that, after centuries of solitude, longed for genuine connection. And Su Ling, for all her centuries of wisdom, was tempted. Humans were fleeting, noisy things. But this man was different, she thought. He was quiet. He listened. He saw the forest not as a resource, but as a living poem. A dangerous, old loneliness within her began to unfurl. What Lin was doing was a perversion of the very arts he once sought to master. He was not using force, but the principles of cosmic balance against her. He was creating a bond, a debt of shared emotion and trust. He was making himself a part of her world, so that when he struck, the betrayal itself would become a source of potent, dark energy. The pain of a broken trust, the shattering of a centuries-old solitude. That emotional cataclysm would destabilize her spiritual core, making it vulnerable for extraction. One evening, as they sat by the pool under a sky dense with stars, Lin presented her with a gift. It was a hairpin, exquisitely carved from a single piece of moon-white jade. "A token," he said, his voice soft. "To thank you for your companionship. It reminds me of your purity, your connection to the true essence of the world, untainted by the greed of men." It was a masterstroke. The jade was not just jade, it had been soaked in a solution of ground pearl and dragon's blood, a substance that acted as a spiritual anchor. It was beautiful, but it was also a cage. Touched by the gesture, a feeling she had not allowed herself in 100 years, Su Ling accepted the pin. She placed it in her hair. The moment it touched her, she felt a slight, cold pressure on her spirit, but she mistook it for the weight of her own burgeoning emotion. "Lin," she said, her amber eyes earnest. "There is something I must tell you. I am not what I seem." "I know," he replied, and for a single, heartbreaking moment, she thought he meant he knew and accepted her. Then she saw the change in his eyes. The sorrow vanished, replaced by the cold, clinical calculation of a hunter. "You are a Huli Jing of 3 tails. And you are exactly what I have been searching for." From his sleeve, he drew not a weapon, but a small, bronze bell. It was engraved with constellations that never shone in the true heavens. He rang it once. The sound was not loud, but it was absolute. It was the antithesis of life, a note of pure nullity. The world did not hear it with ears, but with the soul. The forest fell silent. The waterfall's roar seemed to be swallowed by the night. For Su Ling, the effect was catastrophic. The bell, the seal of unmaking, shattered her illusions and locked her spiritual form. Her human guise flickered and died. Her cloak dissolved, revealing 3 magnificent, flowing tails. Her features sharpened, becoming more vulpine, her eyes widening in shock and betrayal. The cold pressure of the hairpin became an iron grip, anchoring her to the spot, preventing her from dissolving into mist and escaping. "Why?" she whispered, the word carrying the weight of her 600 years. "The Empress requires your core," Lin said, his voice devoid of all the warmth he had fabricated. "Your essence of transformation and endurance. It is the key to her immortality. Your betrayal, this moment, it makes the essence all the more potent. Thank you, Su Ling. Your sorrow will fuel an empire." From the shadows, the silent ones emerged. They did not bind her with ropes, but with chains of cold forged iron inscribed with sealing sigils. As they dragged her away, she did not struggle. She simply stared at Lin, her amber eyes etching his face into her memory with a hatred as pure and cold as the mountain spring. The bond he had forged was not broken. It was inverted, twisted into a conduit for her rage. The journey back to the Eternal City was a silent, grim procession. Su Ling was kept in a sealed palanquin, the sigils on her chains leeching her strength. She could feel the life of the land dying as they moved from the pristine wilderness into the manicured, controlled environment of the capital. The very air tasted of control and despair. When she was brought before the Empress in the hidden alchemical chamber, she understood the scale of the horror. She saw the jars, the remnants of the kiln, the ash of the phoenix. She saw the hungry, lifeless beauty in the Empress's eyes. "A fine specimen," the Empress said, circling her. "So much life, so much will. We will break it, distill it, and make it ours." Lin avoided Su Ling's gaze. He busied himself with preparations, grinding minerals, heating the great cauldron. The final ritual was complex. It required the Huli Jing to be conscious, for the emotional energy of her despair was a critical catalyst. She was forced into a circle of cinnabar and crushed bone, the Empress's preferred medium. The air grew thick and heavy. The Empress began to chant, her voice a low, resonant hum that vibrated in the bones rather than the ears. Lin, his hands trembling slightly, added the ingredients to the cauldron. The liquid within turned from scarlet to a deep, violent purple, then to a black that seemed to suck the light from the room. Su Ling felt a terrible pulling sensation, as if her very soul were being unwound from her body. Her memories, her centuries of life, her love for the forest, her moment of trust in Lin, all of it was being drawn out, siphoned towards the cauldron. She screamed, but the sound was stolen by the oppressive energy in the room. Her form began to flicker, her tails becoming translucent. This was the moment Lin had worked for. This was the pinnacle of his art. But as he watched the life drain from the fox spirit's eyes, he did not feel triumph. He saw the kiln's horn, cracked and dead. He saw the phoenix feather, turned to ash. He saw the hollow, insatiable hunger in the Empress's face. He saw the symmetry of it all. To defy nature, one must become unnatural. To achieve immortality, one must become a vampire, feeding on the life of others for eternity. And in that moment, the Tao he had abandoned whispered to him. It spoke of balance. It spoke of the inevitable reckoning. The Empress was not creating life. She was creating a void that would eventually consume everything, including him. The ritual reached its crescendo. A shimmering, amber orb of light, Su Ling's spiritual core, began to coalesce above her head, ready to be plunged into the elixir. "Now, Lin," the Empress commanded, her eyes blazing with avaricious light. But Lin hesitated. He looked at Su Ling, at the core of her being, which was not just power, but a tapestry of a long, wild, and now broken life. He saw the reflection of his own damnation in her fading eyes. He made a choice. Instead of guiding the core into the cauldron, he chanted a counter-melody, a fragment of an old, forgotten protection mantra. It was a feeble thing, a sparrow against a typhoon, but it was enough. It disrupted the perfect flow of the ritual for a single, critical second. The Empress shrieked in fury. "Traitor!" The unbalanced energies rebounded. The cauldron, containing the concentrated, stolen power of a dozen magical beings, erupted. It was not an explosion of fire, but of raw, chaotic essence. A wave of force slammed into the Empress, not killing her, but infusing her with the unstable, conflicting energies. She screamed, a sound that was part woman, part demon, as her body contorted, her jade-like skin cracking to reveal glimpses of scales, feathers, and raw power beneath. Lin was thrown back against the wall, his body broken. The last thing he saw was Su Ling, freed from the circle by the backlash, her core snapping back into her body. She was weak, barely corporeal, but her eyes met his. There was no forgiveness in him, only a grim understanding. She had seen his moment of hesitation. It changed nothing, but it was noted. Then, she dissolved into a wisp of amber smoke and fled through a crack in the foundation, into the sewers and out towards the wilds. The fallout was immediate and terrible. The Empress survived, but she was no longer human. She became a creature of cinnabar and bone, her beauty now a terrifying mask. She could not leave her chambers, for the sunlight caused her physical pain. Her rule became even more absolute and paranoid, enforced by the silent ones who were now more monstrous, twisted by the residual energies of the blast. The emperor died within a week, some said from fright after beholding his wife's new form. The empress declared herself regent, ruling from the shadows. The empire, sensing the rot at its core, began to fray. Rebellion sparked in the provinces. Plague swept through the cities. The heavens themselves seemed to turn away, as droughts and floods ravaged the land. The balance had been broken. Years turned into decades. The Eternal City became a place of whispers and fear. The story of the fox spirit and the alchemist became a dark fairy tale, a warning about the price of reaching for heaven with bloody hands. Deep in the mountains, in a valley forgotten by maps, a fox with 3 tails slowly regained her strength. The betrayal had scarred her, but it had also taught her a final, brutal lesson about the nature of humanity. She no longer sought the company of mortals. She cultivated her power not for grace or benevolence, but for pure, unadulterated survival. Her amber eyes, when they looked towards the distant, hazy outline of the Eternal City, held not a desire for vengeance, but a vast, immeasurable patience. She would outlive them. She would outlive the Empire. She would wait for the stones of the Forbidden Palace to crumble to dust and for the name of the Empress of Cinnabar and Bone to be forgotten by all but the wind and the rain. For the world, she knew, always restored its balance. It was just a matter of time, and she had nothing but time.
If you feel a chill down your spine, don't worry. They're just standing behind you, listening with you. Thank you for daring to enter the world of fairy tales of Nim. We'll see you again next night, if you're still around.